I still remember standing in my own driveway holding the RV key fob while a flatbed hauled away our family trip like it was trash. The HOA called it community standards, but what they really did was rewrite bylaws in the dark and stick us with fines. They didn't expect Dad the quiet banker to pull their loan agreements and revoke the very credit line that kept their rules afloat. Let me take you back to the morning it all began. The chrome key fob is warm in my palm, catching a stripe of sunrise as if it knows we're finally leaving. The RV waits in the driveway like a faithful dog tires dressed tank-topped the good cooler packed with Sandra's peach tea and cold-fried chicken. Down at the HOA gate, a white pickup with magnetic compliance decals idles exhaust thinning into the cool air. A handheld scanner chirps a clean bureaucratic beep that cleaves through birdsong. Two men in navy polos step out tape a neon towing notice to our windshield and smooth it flat with the same care you'd give a fresh bandage. "Morning," the foreman says without looking up. "Bylaw 814, oversized vehicles. No overnight storage. Effective as of revision dated June 1st. "We're not storing," I say. "We're leaving. Leaving can't start before 8, he recites. "Quiet hours, visibility corridor compliance." Dad comes down the porch steps with his banker's calm like a pressed shirt. "May I see the revision you're citing QR code on the notice?" The foreman taps the corner. "It's all in there." Sandra stands in the doorway, the picnic cooler sweating against her shins. "We loaded last night because of the heat," she offers, voice bright at the edges. "It melts the butter if we don't." The second contractor walks around back with a tape measure. Overall length, he asks the air, then calls 36.5. "That's with the bike rack," I say. 36.5, he repeats, writing it down. Dad steadies his glasses. "I'd still like to read the revision." I raise my phone to the QR square. The link pinwheels and times out. "I think your internet's as strict as your rules." The foreman shrugs, slides on gloves. "We've got a schedule, folks. The aluminum sign at the gate is new enough to blind you. No overnight parking revised 2020. The bolts still shine raw and silver. A gate camera pivots on its stalk and fixes us with a red, unblinking dot. I can feel it drawing a box around our faces, filing us. "Let me be clear," Dad says, polite as a ledger line. "We've taken a trip every summer since my son was small enough to ride with his feet on the dash. We're leaving today, not storing." The foreman points at the driveway like it's Exhibit A. "Vehicle was present after midnight. That's overnight. That's life," Sandra says softly. "Not storage." He doesn't answer. The winch winds a rope of sound that makes my molars ache. I step between the hitch and his hands. "They're towing my dad's RV before our family trip," I tell the camera, because it will outlast everyone else's memory. "You understand how that sounds in an email, right?" The foreman's jaw moves once like he's chewing a clause. "Sir, please step back." Dad's briefcase handle creaks as his knuckles pale. "Graham," he says evenly. "Record, don't obstruct." I back up 2 steps and lift the phone higher. Bees fuss in the crepe myrtle. Somewhere behind me a neighbor's flag flaps, then stills. The second contractor lowers the hitch saddle. Steel kisses steel with an indifferent clink. A woman in yoga pants slows her golden retriever to a gossip pace. She holds her phone chest high, live streaming. "Are you guys in trouble?" she asks the dog. "Not us." "Not yet," I say. "Just paying dues in a new currency." She laughs like she didn't hear me. "My brother's HOA does this all the time," she tells her viewers. "Keeps the neighborhood tidy." "Tidy?" Sandra repeats, pushing a smile that doesn't take, like wiping the table with the plate still on it. The foreman peels the backing off a second strip of tape. He smooths the towing notice again, a gesture almost tender. In the bottom corner, a number for impound recovery sits in fonts too small for mercy. "Who signed the revision?" Dad asks. "Did homeowners vote?" "Board adopted," the foreman says. That's all I need to know. That's not what I asked. He doesn't rise to it. Diesel coughs a black breath ghosting across our driveway. I glance at the unopened email on my phone from last night, subject line Community Aesthetics, still flagged red because my thumb hovered, and then decided stupidly that morning would be better for reading bad news. The winch clicks again, and the RV rocks. I can smell the faint sweetness of the rubber mats we washed yesterday. The lemon cleaner in the galley, our trip already haunting the air like a memory that hasn't happened. From across the cul-de-sac, someone calls, "Rules are rules." In the voice people use when they want the universe to sound simple. Rules are agreements. Dad answers, turning toward the voice, but not raising his. Agreements are voted on. "Sir, the foreman says we're in compliance with what we've been given. What you've been given, Dad repeats, as if tasting it. The gate camera hums closer. The red dot, a tiny sunrise. My phone vibrates a calendar reminder titled Blue Ridge Campground Check-in Window, 3 to 6 p.m., and I swallow hard. The RV's rear wheels lift slow and smooth the way you heft something sleeping so it won't wake and argue. Sandra presses her palm to the RV door as if it could feel. We packed the novels in the side bin she tells me talking to hold herself up, and the cards. Did you pack the cards? In the top drawer with the bug spray, I say. The contractor with the tape measure glances at me, and for a second his face softens into a person who also has weekends. Then he flicks his attention back to the hitch and is a policy again. QR's still spinning, I report. Maybe the bylaw doesn't want to be read. Printouts in the truck, the foreman says, as if that solves everything in the world. Then print it, Dad says. We can't delay the tow, he replies, and his eyes say he's had this conversation on more porches than he'd like. The winch settles into its rhythm, click, groan, pause, click, groan, pause. The RV rises by inches, our porch steps reflected in its skin as if they were climbing too. Mini cliff inside me, there's a second where I honestly think the foreman will sigh nod and lower it back down. He doesn't. Graham. Dad says quietly, get the impound address. I zoom the notice in until the tiny typeset becomes blocky. Here I say, out on County Road 12, and the fee, hook up and storage as applicable, I read. Cash or card. Of course, Dad says. The flatbed angles levels takes our summer with it. The key fob in my palm has cooled like metal always keeps its own weather. The dog walker gives the screen a little wave and resumes her pace. The gate camera blinks once satisfied. They're towing my dad's RV before our family trip. I say again this time to Dad because he's the one who will remember the exact phrasing later. Where exactly are they taking our trip? He looks at the empty rectangles of tire shadow on the concrete and then at the bright new bolts on the gate sign. Someplace with a receipt, he says. And the truck rolls slow and official toward the sign that says, no overnight parking, as if words could change what the sunlight is doing to the day. The receptionist's smile is the kind that comes stapled to policies. Fluorescents buzz above her hairnet smooth bun. Laminated mission statements throw a warped glare into a glass bowl of mints. She slides 2 visitor badges toward us. The barcodes don't scan. She waves us through anyway, like rules are a scent you can recognize. Conference room B, she says. They're expecting you. We pass a bulletin board quilted with flyers, pool hours, pet waste, and a fresh printout, amendment adopted April 2021. Retroactive clarification. The word retroactive is bolded in Comic Sans cheerful and menacing at once. Dad's tie knot sits neat as punctuation. Retroactive, he murmurs as if testing the mouthfeel. Always the friend of last-minute emperors. Inside Conference B, the air conditioning is set to penance. Folding chairs flank a laminate table polished to a false gloss. On the wall, framed photos celebrate neighborhood chili cook-off winners' smiles, luminous trophies, cheap plastic proud. Miriam Huxley stands before we sit. Thank you for coming, she says. Her portfolio is clutched like a shield. Her smile is courtroom grade. We'll be brief. I start the recording app. For minutes, I say, since barcodes aren't scanning today. Her eyes glance to the phone, then back to Dad. Mr. Kessler, as you know, bylaw amendment 814 governs oversized vehicles. I'll read the certified text. She slides a certified amendment letter from a protective sleeve. The embossed county seal catches light a quiet flex. Quote, she says, voice even. Overnight storage of recreational vehicles is prohibited within visual corridors of the subdivision. Enforcement includes towing at owner expense. She looks up. Your vehicle was towed accordingly. We weren't storing, I say. We were leaving. Departure requires compliance, she replies. Compliance requires foresight. Dad folds his hands. May I see the adoption record for this amendment? Notice to homeowners. Ballot results. The board adopted under authority granted by the CCNRs, Miriam says. Homeowner vote was not required. Show me the section that says that Dad says mild as noon. Miriam doesn't frown. She re-sleeves the letter, tucks a strand of hair behind an ear you suspect never tangles. We're here to discuss the path to release, she says, not to litigate board procedure. Procedure is the path Dad answers. The property manager, a man with a coffee stain like a continent on his sleeve, pushes a packet across the table. Here's the impound location and the fee schedule, he says. Hook up daily storage after hours gate fee. Circle indicates totals due as of 8 a.m. A coffee ring halos the number like it's holy. I fight the instinct to wipe it clean. Dad opens his leather folder and places our 2018 driveway maintenance permit between us like a bridge. We performed improvements with HOA approval, he says. Our RV has staged for departures the same way every summer. Non-germane. Miriam says the word snapping clean. That permit addressed surface materials, not aesthetics or storage. You're calling a morning of loading a family vehicle storage, I say. We're calling a visible violation a violation, she says. Who decided visibility, I ask. The amendment, she says. Which you adopted, Dad adds retroactively. Miriam's smile holds. Sir, we can waive the after-hours gate fee if you remit the hookup and storage today. I tap the packet. What's the vote count from April 2021? The board adopted, she repeats. Authority suffices. Authority suffices. Dad echoes, taking the phrase apart like a watch to see which spring does the lying. The room ticks AC vent a clock that's not visible. Someone's pen tapping. Outside the thin wall, a printer coughs. Look, the property manager says uneasy. We're not trying to be difficult. We just follow process. That's exactly what we're asking you to show, Dad says. Process. He reaches into his folder again and lays out a one-page print 2018 permit approval conditions. The bottom margin bears Miriam's predecessor's signature. This is your process too. Again, not germane, Miriam says. Different scope. Scope creep is usually a project problem, Dad says, or a governance one. She closes her portfolio with a crisp kiss of faux leather. Mr. Kessler, we're not enemies. We manage property values. We maintain standards. Neighborhood expectations don't enforce themselves. Expectations require consent, Dad says. Consent is recorded. Show me the record. Her jaw sets a fraction. Board authority suffices. Minnie Cliff, there's nothing louder than a door that won't open where one should. I notice my palms are damp. The visitor badge curls at the edge, the glue failing under July. Okay, I say. So path to release is pay, then argue. Path to release. Miriam agrees is pay. And the gate camera, I ask. Is that footage available for disputes? Recorded for safety, she says. Not for debate. Dad slides the fee schedule closer, reading as if the numbers might confess. What if the certified letter was sent without proper notice, he asks. Then you would bring that concern to the board, Miriam says, which I chair, and you would recuse Dad, says matter of fact. She blinks once slow. We're drifting off topic. We're on topic, Dad says. The topic is whether the board is using process to replace consent. The property manager clears his throat. We can hold the storage fee at today's rate if you act by close of business. Generous, I say. Like charging rent on the house you just locked me out of. Miriam turns to me. This tone won't help. Neither did the toe, I say. Dad's voice smooths the room. We'll need copies of the certified amendment letter, proof of homeowner notification, the adoption record, and the section of CC&Rs you say permits board-only adoption. That's a records request, Miriam says. Yes, Dad says. Records requests require processing time. How long? As long as it takes, she says. Dad leans back, and for a beat I think he'll lose his temper. He doesn't. He nods as if a small fussy machine has just revealed where its on-off switch lives. In that case, he says we'll pay the minimum to recover my dad's RV today, and we'll seek the record. Miriam opens her portfolio, again pen hovering. Card or check card? Dad says, and a receipt. She writes on a yellow slip. Take this to the window. The yard opens at noon. We stand. The chili cook-off winners grin down at us untroubled by covenants. In the hallway, the AC roar softens to a distant hiss. Dad's thumb presses the RV key fob in his pocket, still whole little compass charm bumping his knuckle. If they're going to treat this like paper, he says, voice low, we'll answer with paper. And patience, I say. He nods once. And procedure. We pass the bulletin board again. Retroactive winks in Comic Sans as if rules can smile and still bite. Outside, July heat presses down like a palm. Impounds across County Road 12. I say. We'll go, Dad says. Then we'll read. And the glass door whooshes open, letting the hot morning and its inevitabilities in. The neon in the window sputters like it needs a decision. Inside the Pine Ridge Diner, the syrup caddies are sticky and the table lacquer is worn to a soft shine from years of elbows. Dolores Martinez stirs her coffee with the patience of a courthouse clock. Dad lays a manila folder on the formica like a quiet summons. Sorry for the short notice, he says. Short notice is the only honest kind, Dolores replies, tapping her spoon dry on the rim. Let's see what we're teaching the board today. Dad slides a photocopy across. The toner is a shade too light, but the numbers still carry weight. HOA, loan, ledger, he says. Principal, interest, covenants. Dolores leans in, glasses low. She taps one nail on the heading, then lower on a paragraph where the font tightens. Covenant to maintain operating reserves at no less than 3 months of dues. Another tap, event of default if governance violates state statute or recorded bylaws. She looks up. Things that look official aren't always lawful. I pull my notebook closer. Can we connect this to how they adopted the RV rule? Adopted, she echoes, making the word sound like a stray they fed on the porch. She extracts a second sheet from her tote bylaw adoption procedure checklist. Boxes march down the page. Notice period, homeowner, vote. Record with county post to portal. Dolores traces the boxes with her spoon tip. See these missing dates. Dad's shoulders settle. No notice? Maybe notice? She allows. But if it existed, it went to paper heaven without leaving a footprint. You want footprints. I glance at the window. Humidity halos the glass, blurring the parking lot into an aquarium of F-150s. The radio in the corner murmurs an 80s chorus about holding on and never letting go. Fitting, considering our trip's been parked in purgatory. Dolores taps the ledger again. Who holds this note? Willow Creek Credit Union, Dad says. And your relationship. I underwrote their renewals, he replies. Before I retired. She sips, considering him over the cup. So, you speak the language. I negotiate in it, he says. Good, she says, because this is a language game, they're counting on everyone speaking only neighborly. I point to a line mid-page. What about this collateral dues stream? Dolores smiles the way librarians do when you ask a real question. That's the spine. If covenants are violated, the bank can declare a default and call the loan Dad finishes. Careful, she says. The goal isn't to light the neighborhood on fire. The goal is to take the matches away from a few arsonists. Agreed, he says. The waitress arrives with a coffee pot and a pad. Refill for the judges, she asks. Please, Dolores says. And a side of adoption records with a sunny side-up vote count. The waitress grins without understanding, fills our mugs, scribbles coffee X3, and moves on. Dolores flips the checklist over and writes in block letters, Evidence. Under it, she lists certified letter copy, proof of notice, minutes with tally, county recording stamp. She dots the last word like a gavel. Okay, I say. So, if they can't produce these, what's the lever? Dolores points to Dad's folder. He's holding it. Condition compliance with governing law. If they skipped steps, their amendments wobble. And banks don't like wobble. Mini cliff. The word wobble sticks to the roof of my mouth because I can feel the board's confidence doing it. What about optics, I ask. Neighbors will say we're nuking the HOA over a parking issue. We're not. Dad says, opening his banker's pad. He writes slow, careful letters. Collateral dues stream. Condition compliance with governing law. He doesn't smile. He exhales. We're requiring a board that loves rules to love the right ones. Dolores angles her head. Make a records request today. Certified mail return receipt. Copy the management company and the board. Ask for the adoption packet and the county file date. Include a deadline. 10 business days, I ask. 7, she says. They've already been living with this for 2 years. I jot it all down, the ink pressing through the cheap paper. Dad flips to a fresh page. If the package comes up light, we notify the lender of a covenant concern. Not an accusation, Dolores says. A concern. You're not the villain in their story. You're the adult. Dad nods. Calculator brain running. He glances at the ledger totals. This balance is big enough to matter. Big enough to make a treasurer listen when their ears are tired, Dolores says. The door jingles and a pair of line workers enter, boots clacking neon vests dulled with dust. One nods at Dolores like she notarized his mortgage once, which she probably did. She lifts 2 fingers in a courtly greeting. What about the gate camera footage, I ask. Ask for retention policy, she says. Ask for access. They'll say safety only. Write that down too. Paper has a way of reading itself to people who don't want to read. Dad taps the ledger's default clause. Violation of recorded bylaws or applicable law constitutes an event of default. Dolores lifts an eyebrow. 2 sentences. That's all you quote. One from the loan, one from the checklist. No speeches. Let the paper do the sermon. I look at Dad. And we're sure you want to be the one to pull this lever. Dad the banker becomes a target. He folds the ledger, aligns the corners. The toe made us a target. This just makes us prepared. Dolores reaches into her tote again and slides over a business card the color of oatmeal. Dolores E. Martinez. Records and filings Rhett. On the back, her landline written in blue ink, steady as a stamp. If they stonewall, call me. If they try to charge for copies, note it. If they get cute with format request PDFs and paper both. The waitress returns with a check housed in a cracked plastic sleeve. Anything else, she asks. Timestamp that if you don't mind, Dolores says. The waitress blinks, then leans toward the register. A loud chunk answers. She writes 10:17 a.m. in the corner. Perfect, Dolores says. Now you have a diner receipt that plants this conversation on a timeline they can't move. I grin, despite myself. You really think like a clerk? I think like a person who's watched 1,000 shortcuts turn into sinkholes, she says. Paper is asphalt. Dad tucks the ledger copies back into the manila folder. What's the risk? We wake up something worse. There's always something worse, Dolores says. But the worst thing is pretending process doesn't matter because it's inconvenient. You're not breaking the board. You're teaching it to read. We stand. The neon flickers obligingly. Dad reaches for his wallet, then sets the RV key fob on the counter to pay. The cashier picks it up. This little compass is cute, she says. Helps us point in the right direction, Dad replies. She laughs, rings the total, and hands the fob back. His hand is steady now. Outside, the humidity hits and the diner door sighs shut behind us. So I ask, records request by end of day. Certified, Dad says. Return receipt. Then we wait. For what? For someone to discover they forgot to do their homework, Dolores answers, easing past us to the curb, and for the bank to remember what homework means. She salutes us with her coffee to go and heads toward a beige sedan that looks like it files itself. Dad watches her go, then opens the manila folder to the page where he'd written it out, collateral dues stream, condition compliance with governing law. He closes it with the smallest nod decision set lever found. The neon hums behind us. The radio croons Never Let You Go, and for the first time since the winch sang, it feels like a promise. String lights drape between mailboxes like a low constellation, and a Bluetooth speaker coughs out a country playlist while the grill throws sweet smoke into the cul-de-sac. Paper plates sag under baked beans. Store-bought brownies arrive sweating in their clamshells. Miriam moves through it all with a lacquered smile and a glass of pale wine as if she's hosting a lifestyle show called Compliance But Make It Fun. Someone at the folding table reads from a phone voice too loud. Certain families think they're above community standards. A pause. That's from the HOA Facebook group. Name the families a dad in a team jersey calls. We don't do call-outs, Miriam says, turning the smile toward him and then toward us. We do community. The gate camera on its pole blinks a red LED steady as a metronome counting good behavior. Kids throw beanbags at a cornhole board painted with the subdivision logo. A bag lands with a hollow thud that sounds to me like a gavel after a long day. Sandra presses a foil pan of macaroni into a gap on the buffet. We brought extra forks, she offers to no one specific. Thank you, Sandra. Miriam says, warmth turned to the right setting. Now that's the spirit. Dad stands beside me, hands clasped. Banker quiet, turned down to social volume. I keep my phone in my pocket, voice memo rolling just in case tonight needs to remember itself later. At the far edge of the yard, two board members whisper with the treasurer heads bowed over a clipboard. I wander near the drinks cooler, pretending clumsiness. Ice clacks against aluminum. The treasurer's voice is low, but the words are made to be heard by people who know how to listen. Logged as a landscaping emergency line item, he says. We moved it from contingency. It's covered. How much the board member asks. 3,000, and change the treasurer says. My throat tightens. I lift a soda I don't want and rattle the cooler like an actor in a bad play. The treasurer glances up. Our eyes snag and then slide away. I step back into the lights where laughter is safest. A neighbor with a craft beer nods toward me. You getting back on the road soon? That's the plan, I say. Hope so, he says. I booked October for the mountains. Wouldn't want to get blocked. Miriam appears between us, a smile with good posture. It's about property values, she coos as if she can taste how gentle she sounds. We all work so hard to keep things beautiful. Receipts, though, I say. for the toe, since we're talking beauty. Routine, she says one word, waved away with her glass. Maintenance. You wouldn't want weeds, would you? Weeds and towing are cousins now, I ask. Don't be literal, Graham, she says, still smiling. We have to keep the HOA solvent. Emergencies happen. Emergencies like a truck that arrives on time with a notice you printed yesterday, I say. Her smile holds. I'm happy to discuss process at the next meeting. That's not the meeting where people get to vote, I say. It's the one where they clap. She tilts her head. Be neighborly. I say. I'm the neighbor who reads. A burst of laughter erupts from the cornhole game. One beanbag slides clean through the hole. The red LED on the gate camera doesn't blink faster. It doesn't need to. A hand brushes my pocket. I reach for the RV keychain to steady myself, and it slips free. It hits the concrete with a brittle, unforgiving ping. The little metal ring skews out of round. I pick it up, thumb over the compass charm. Dad notices. Bent, he asks, voice low. Out of true, I say. We'll fix it, he says, eyes on the crowd, not on Miriam. He doesn't put his hand on my shoulder. He doesn't have to. The words sit where a hand would. Miriam takes a step closer, a smile sharpened to a point. You know, she says to Dad, not to me. The board appreciates homeowners who respect standards. It's so much easier when we all row the same direction. Standards require votes, Dad says mildly. Ours do too. Cute, she says. Maybe you could join a committee. You have a good way with metaphors. I prefer minutes, Dad says. Minnie Cliff, for a beat, her smile blinks off. The treasurer clears his throat on cue, and Miriam turns toward the picnic table to declare raffle prizes. The speaker hiccups, then resumes its course about small towns and long roads. The night slides forward a click. I drift back to the cooler, flip my phone open under the table, and save the voice memo. Then I scroll the HOA Facebook group on my second account. The one no one remembers belongs to me. There it is, the post about families above standards, comments piled like leaves. I screenshot the thread, the timestamps, the likes, the Ahmad note, with Miriam's initials. Somewhere on the other side of the yard, the treasurer laughs too loudly at a joke that wasn't a joke. Later in the clubhouse lobby, I find the public packet for last month's meeting tucked in a wire rack, agenda general ledger extract vendor disbursements. No one is guarding it because paper never looks dangerous under fluorescent light. The ledger extract shows the familiar categories: grounds pool management fee, and then a line for landscaping emergency, with a number that matches the treasurer's whisper like a rhyme. I hold the page up to the vending machine's glow, and the amount sits there, not apologizing. Vendor, I ask the property manager who's replenishing ice in the punch bowl. Routine, he says without turning. Which vendor? He lifts the bag of ice higher as if that were an answer. Routine, he repeats. I take the packet home and print the vendor disbursement page from the portal to check the name. It's not the tow yard. It's a company I've seen on the wedges in the beds around the clubhouse, initials in green on the trucks. Green Arc Maintenance, LLC. I pull up the Secretary of State's website and type with the clumsy patience bureaucracy requires. The registered agent's address is a mailbox store. The phone number goes to an answering service that offers me mulch and then a prayer for patience if I ask about towing. The red dot of the gate camera watches from my browser's reflected glow. In my head, anyway, I can still feel it. Back at the buffet table before I left the party, I asked Miriam, will the receipts be part of the minutes routine? She sang again. We're very efficient. Efficient like a magician's other hand, I said. Now at the kitchen table, the printout of the general ledger extract is under my palms. The numbers don't look like much until you line them up with a calendar that includes a toe. When you do, they look like intent. Dad wanders in, loosening his tie as if our living room were a boardroom that finally adjourned. He nudges my elbow toward the bent ring of the keychain sitting by my laptop. We'll fix it, he says again, and it lands differently now, heavier and more particular. Vendor's not the tow yard, I say. It's the landscaping company. Routine. He says a single word turned inside out, so its empty stitching shows. Facebook post is ugly, I add. Screenshotted. He nods toward my laptop screen. Save all of it. On Dad's desk in the next room, a printer hums and then goes still. A page slides out with the words revocation draft in the header, the font Dad always uses when he means business but hasn't decided how angry to be. I pick up the bent keychain and set it beside the warm page. The string lights from the BBQ are still flickering somewhere behind my eyes. The red LED from the gate camera blinks in memory too, pacing out a decision neither of us says aloud. We'll fix it, Dad says a third time from the doorway, not looking at Miriam in my head, now not looking at me either. He's looking at the paper. The compass charm on the keychain turns by a fraction as if to point at the line where the draft will begin. Dad's study smells like pencil shavings and burnt coffee, the scent of decisions. The green banker's lamp makes a little island of light on his desk where 3 loan agreements fan out like cards you're not supposed to see. He underlines a clause with surgeon's precision the nib of his fountain pen, whispering along the paper subject to revocation. The heater clicks, pauses, clicks again. Cold air sneaks through an old window and lifts the corner of a sticky note that reads in his square hand, "Collateral equals dues stream." The graphite dents on the margin look like someone pressing a doorbell over and over. "Start me a folder called Covenants versus Adoption," he says. I pull my laptop closer. Name the directory, feel the dull thrum of the home Wi-Fi like a distant generator. He opens a manila envelope and spreads loan records stamped Willow Creek Credit Union. Red ink in the upper right says 2016. He taps a paragraph halfway down with a capped pen. 2 sentences, he says. That's all we need to quote at the hearing, and not even both in the same breath. I scroll. Let me guess. Violation of recorded bylaws or applicable law constitutes an event of default. He nods. And the subject to revocation line. He doesn't smile. He draws a small square in the margin like he's framing a window. We've pulled the HOA minutes from the portal months of tidy PDFs that read like a book written by someone allergic to verbs. I slide a stack of printouts across the blotter. No homeowner votes logged for April 2021, I say. Agenda shows board business, minutes show discussion, then adopted. Notice he asks. Meeting notice posted on the bulletin board, I say, but not the 30-day pre-notice for an amendment. No ballot count, no county recording stamp. He draws another square. And yet they keep saying retroactive clarification like a magic spell. The phone on the desk lights up with Dolores. Dad hits speaker. Morning jurists, she says. Her voice has the steady metronome of someone who used to tell clocks what time it was. You swimming in paper yet? Waiting, Dad says. We found Wobble. Wobble is a gift, Dolores replies. Read me what you think the lever is. He glances at me. I lift a page and keep my voice even. Loan covenant says, violation of recorded bylaws or applicable law constitutes an event of default. Adoption checklist requires notice period homeowner vote and county recordation. The packet has none of those. Dolores is silent for a beat that feels like an eyebrow raised over the phone. Good. 2 sentences at the hearing, no sermons. And you're not there to burn down the HOA. You're there to keep it from borrowing matches from your pocket? We understand, Dad says. He flips a page and underlines again straight as string. I slide a yellow highlighter across a line in the HOA minutes. They use the word clarification 3 times and vote 0. Dolores snorts softly. Clarification is how people say, we did it then and we're pretending we did it earlier. Send me what you've got. I email a zip titled Covenants Visas Adoption.zip. The progress bar creeps. The heater kicks again like applause withheld. Also, I say we pulled general ledger pages. There's a line for landscaping emergency that exactly rhymes with tow week. Don't overreach, Dolores says. Use it as color, not as a cudgel. The lever is the loan. Dad clicks his pen open, then closed a small percussion he uses when his brain is throwing sparks. He picks up the bent RV keychain, prop number 2, still riven, and turns the metal ring with his thumb until it squeaks. We'll address finances only insofar as they point to governance, he says. Good Dolores answers. I'm emailing a draft revocation notice template. Subject line says, use only when ready. The email pings. I open it. The template is spare, almost polite. Notice of revocation. Pending compliance sits at the top in a plain serif font. The language is the opposite of a scream calm enough to pass in a church bulletin. Read the first paragraph aloud, Dolores says. I do careful to respect the 2-quote rule. Pursuant to the loan agreement dated 2016 and its covenants, the lender gives notice of revocation pending verification that the association is in compliance with applicable law and recorded governing documents. Good, she says. Now delete anything you want to say next. Minnie, Cliff. I swallow the urge to add the Facebook smear the vendor, mismatch the gate camera that blinks like a jury. The room gets quieter in a good way, like dust settling in a beam of light. Dad leans back, pen against his lip. We need one more piece, he says. Proof that the amendment wasn't recorded with the county. Clerk's office online index, Dolores says. But go in person if the index is stubborn. Bring donuts. Clerks are human. I pull up the county search. A carousel of friendly seals spins, then a blank that feels like the internet shrugging. Index is being indexy, I say. Then you'll get fresh air, Dolores says. Meanwhile, prepare a records request for adoption documents. Certified mail return receipt. Dad points to the printer. Draft it. I type while he dictates soft-spoken precise dates. Document names the 7-day timeline. He adds a line, please include any county recording or clerk file stamps related to said amendment. The printer warms, hums, issues paper that smells faintly of ozone and intent. Graham, Dad says, check the lender's notification protocol. I find a tab in the 2016 agreement. Concerns regarding covenant compliance may be addressed to the Loan Administration Department via registered post or secure email. I read, secure email, he says. Faster than a courier without the theater. He signs our records request with a steady signature that looks like it's been practicing for this day since 1989. Then he places his pen on the blotter and stares at the phone at the lamp at nothing. The heater goes quiet between clicks as if holding its breath with us. I know what you're going to ask, he says to Dolores. Yes, I can do this without enjoying it. You're a better person than most boards deserve, she says. That's why you're the one doing it. He doesn't answer. He gathers the loan records into a tidy stack, aligning edges with the side of his hand the way he used to straighten piles of cash when I was a kid and thought bank vaults were just colder closets. He slides the draft revocation notice to the center of the blotter and opens a new email addressed to loan admin at the credit union. The subject line he types is nothing dramatic. Notice of revocation. Willow Creek, HOA. He hovers. I feel the word we've been walking around since the tow. The room is a paused movie. Before you click, Dolores says say out loud what you're doing, giving the lender a reason to ask the board to do what it should have done, he says. He exhales, and giving the board a way back. He clicks. The scent swoosh barely makes a noise. We sit while the heater decides to live again. The lamp hums. My phone buzzes with an auto-reply from the lender's secure mailbox, received a single word that is both a receipt and a drumbeat. Dad caps his pen with a click that sounds like a little gavel. We're ready, he says. The words are flat, like a judge pronouncing. I reach across the blotter and place the bent RV keychain beside the printed draft. Under the lamplight, the metal ring gleams with a hard edge that feels like a promise sharpened. The compass charm tilts toward the line that begins, notice, as if it knows which way is forward. Folding chairs scrape the waxed floor like reluctant skates. The community center smells of burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Fluorescent tubes hum in a way that makes people clear their throats. A deputy tests the microphone. It squeals once and the room flinches into quiet. Neighbors cluster in rows, ball caps, baby carriers, HOA branded polos. Water bottles crackle in restless hands. On the screen, our laptop projects a slide with a red banner clipped from an EPA advisory. Not our case, just a headline. Non-compliance consequences. Dad stands at the front in his Navy suit banker comm zipped up to the collar. I sit close enough to the aisle to feel the AC draft recorder warm in my pocket. Miriam and the board shuffle papers at 2 folding tables pushed end to end. Her name placard faces the room like a verdict. Her jaw works a slow knot. Dad adjusts the mic. Thank you for giving us time on the agenda. I'll be brief. A polite lie. The only kind acceptable at a public meeting. He clicks to the next slide. Loan covenant excerpts appears in sober type. 2 sentences are circled in red. Violation of recorded bylaws or applicable law constitutes an event of default. Terms are subject to revocation pending compliance. These Dad says are not my words. They're the lender's. Murmurs. Someone whispers, that's our dues, and the phrase floats forward like a paper boat carried by other whispers. Dues stream. Dues stream until it brushes the front row. Miriam leans toward her mic. We are not here for theatrics. We're here for documents, Dad replies. He clicks again. A page of bylaw adoption checklist fills the screen. Notice homeowner vote, county recordation with small red circles where dates should be, but aren't. We requested the adoption packet. The record is missing steps. If the record exists elsewhere, please present it. From the back, a man in a denim jacket raises a hand. Does this mean our fees go up or down? It means governance must match the rules it writes, Dad says, and that lenders expect it to. Miriam taps her placard with a lacquered nail. "This is frivolous," she says, voice amplified to fill corners. "We clarified an existing standard in 2021. The board acted within its authority. This gentleman is exploiting a technicality to punish volunteers." The deputy steps to the side of the dais. His uniform has the crisp, neutral smell of starch. "Ma'am," he says to Miriam without the mic but loud enough, "I have a document for you." She blinks. "What document?" He presents a sealed envelope and waits until she takes it. The thunk of his thumb, leaving the flap, is as quiet as a stamp. Miriam breaks the seal with 2 fingers, then pulls out the revocation notice. The paper bears the lender's logo and today's date. Someone at the credit union likes their serif fonts as much as Dad does. Her lips shape the first line. Her eyes stall on the second. A hiss of breath moves through the room. The treasurer leans toward her. She doesn't lean back. What is it a woman calls? A notice. Dad says into the microphone that the lender has revoked their loans pending verification that the association is in compliance with applicable law and recorded documents. This is a temporary correctable action. Now the murmurs turn heavier like a summer storm rolling closer. A neighbor I recognize from cornhole night half whispers, half prays. "That's our dues stream." Miriam finds her voice. "Irresponsible fear-mongering. You've put our community at risk to win a personal dispute about parking." He holds her gaze even. The risk existed the moment the board replaced consent with convenience. "We followed procedure," she snaps. "Our counsel will surely present the record Dad says, which will satisfy the lender and reinstate terms." The deputy steps back to the room's edge, a neutral parent present for a sibling argument neither child should win. Dad clicks again. The screen shows 2 columns, what's required and what we have. Under Required Notice, Vote Recordation. Under Have Bulletin Board Agenda. Minutes noting Adopted. "I'm open to being corrected by new documents," he says. "That's why I'm doing this here, not in a bank office." A man in a golf shirt stands. "What happens if this isn't fixed?" The prudent thing Dad answers is to comply quickly so nothing else happens. That's what this notice is for, to prompt compliance. Miriam grips her pen like a skewer. "You're what Dad the banker today?" she asks, letting it land like a taunt. Swooping in to bully us, he doesn't blink. "I'm a neighbor who read the same loan you benefit from. Today, I happen to speak its language." A small, sharp laugh darts from somewhere, then hides. He flips to a final slide. Path forward. 3 bullet points. Provide adoption packet. Record if missing. Reinstate terms, plain as a grocery list. "No one needs to be harmed by this," he says, "but we can't pretend paper doesn't exist because it's dull." The deputy clears his throat, eyes on the room. "We'll ask you to keep comments brief and non-personal. It's not a warning, it's a boundary." Miriam leans into her mic. "This board will not be strong-armed." "No one here is armed," Dad says softly. "We're using a notice." The phrase settles the way a lid settles on a simmer. The boil keeps working, but it won't leap. He closes his laptop and the red EPA headline fades from the screen. The fluorescent hum returns to the foreground. For a moment, the room is just people with paper. Effective immediately, Dad says, not raising his voice, loan terms are revoked pending lawful compliance. Papers rustle like leaves in a sudden wind. A hand goes up near the aisle. "So, what do we do, show the record?" Dad says, "Or make it the right way." I feel for the bent RV keychain on his folder, where we set it like an anchor. The little ring is still out of round bright under the lights. Dad reaches for the folder and lifts it a few inches. The keychain tilts, catching a glint. Miriam's eyes snag on the metal and narrow. She recognizes it. She recognizes everything it stands for, what was taken, what it gave us to take back. She looks from the keychain to Dad, then to the notice in her hand as if trying to decide which shape is the one that will last. The deputy steps aside to let the next speaker approach the mic. The fluorescent tubes hum. Somewhere in the back, a bottle cap pings on the floor. I press stop on the recorder and exhale. The room inhales in return. The neon at the Pine Ridge Diner sounds less like sputter and more like breath tonight. The air is syrup sweet. Cicadas vibrate beyond the windows, turning the parking lot into a warm, humming throat. Dolores Martinez is already in the corner booth, stirring her coffee without looking at it, the spoon tapping porcelain in a measured 3 count. So she asks Dad as we slide in, "How will you use victory?" He exhales into his napkin a private ritual, carefully. Between the syrup bottles lies a thin stack with a stapled corner draft charter oversight proposal. The paper is lightweight, but it sits there with purpose. At the top, I've typed a date and left a neat inch of white space for signatures that haven't happened yet. Let's make sure it outlives personalities, Dolores says. A board is just a room with chairs. Rules are what keep the lights on when the chairs change. Dad nods, tired but steady. He reaches into his jacket and sets the RV keychain on the formica. The ring has a bright soldered seam now, a silver eyelash catching the diner light. He rolls the compass charm under his thumb as if calibrating it to the room. Walk me through it, I say. Dolores flips the first page with a notary's care. Clause 1. Mandatory homeowner vote for any bylaw amendment. 30 days notice ballot count published with minutes and a plain language summary mailed, not just posted. Published where Dad asks. Bulletin board portal, and she taps the margin county clerk filing if the change touches covenant substance. We put the old bones back in their proper box. The waitress pours coffee without being asked, leaves us with creamers like little white boats. The booth cushion squeaks as I lean in. I can feel the table's old lacquer give a millimeter under my forearms like the diner itself is listening. Clause 2, Dolores continues. Budget audits, annual third party. Summaries presented at a spring meeting with a Q&A. No more line items that hide under euphemisms. Landscaping emergency, I murmur. Exactly, she says. If it's mulch, call it mulch. If it's a toe, the word toe must appear. Dad lifts his cup eyes on the proposal. And we keep this sane. No punishments for past votes. No pillory. Reform, Dolores says. Not revenge. She turns the page. Clause 3. Records response timelines. 7 business days for standard document requests. Fee caps printed in policy so processing doesn't become a toll road. The doorbell jingles. 2 neighbors from our cul-de-sac, Patricia from the corner house, and a man I've only ever seen mowing with military lines slide into the next booth. They try to pretend they're not listening. They fail politely. Clause 4, Dolores says. Conflict of interest disclosure. Board members declare business ties with vendors. Recusal is not a suggestion. Dad glances at me, then at the soldered ring. Put that one in bold. It's already bold, she says, satisfied. Clause 5. Public posting of hearing transcripts. Redact private info. Keep decisions in the sun. I watch the cicada-hummed window, the way the streetlight cuts a clean rectangle into the lot. And fees, I ask. We promised not to leave families harmed. Dolores slides a second sheet from beneath the stack fee reduction plan draft. 20% cut to assessments for the next fiscal year, she says. Funded by trimming fat and delaying vanity projects. Restore a sensible reserve target while we audit vendor contracts. Dad sets his coffee down, careful not to splash on the margins. No bankrupting, he says. We keep the pool open. We maintain sidewalks. We stop performing excellence at the expense of trust. Then we print this on pale blue. Dolores says deadpan. It always makes things calmer. I grin. You're joking. Half, she says. The waitress drops a plate of fries between us with 3 forks like Solomon splitting an appetizer. This one's on the house, she says. Heard about the meeting. Thank you, Dad says. Patricia leans backward, pretending to reach for a napkin, which puts her right into our booth's air. If that oversight thing passes, she says without turning, will it mean we can see where the money goes without begging? Yes, I say, and without paying per page for PDFs. Her shoulders drop, as if someone untied a knot. About time. Dolores writes plain language in the margin and underlines it twice. We'll tack on a quarterly transparency sheet, 1-page charts on contracts reserve health variances. You want people to see, not to drown. Dad's phone buzzes face down on the vinyl. He flips it. Credit Union received board council packet. A second notification follows board to provide adoption packet by Friday. We've got their attention, he says. Good, Dolores replies. Use it to build a table, not a pyre. He signs his name at the bottom of the fee reduction plan, not the signature, just the shape of agreement. The diner's AC kicks on. The neon hum evens into a tone you could carry a tune against. Who introduces it? I ask, tapping the proposal. Not me, Dad says. Someone who won't activate the antibodies. Patricia swivels properly now, abandoning the charade. I'm on the new board, she says, almost sheepish. If that's not news, pretend it is. I'll sponsor it. The man beside her lawn line guy nods. I'll second. He clears his throat. And I'll vote to stop pretending we can't read. My wife does our budget. She's been asking for this for years. Dolores smiles at them like they just found their names on a roster. Good, she says. Democracy is a muscle. It forgets unless you use it. Dad flips the oversight proposal back to the first page and dots an I. We'll circulate the draft tonight, he says. Town hall-style Q&A before the vote. We answer fear with facts, and if someone throws a tomato, we offer fries. On pale blue paper, I say, in 12-point type, Dolores answers. Accessibility for aging eyes and angry ones. We share the fries without ceremony. Salt dusts the proposal's corner a little sacrament of diner food and civic duty. The laminated menu at the edge of the table curls upward a cheap bookmark reminder that nothing about this has to be fancy to work. Dad picks up the RV keychain again, runs his thumbnail along the solder seam until it catches and slides. You did good work, he says to Dolores, but also to the woman who fixed the ring at the jewelry kiosk in the mall, and to the clerk who stamped our records request, and to the parts of himself that chose temper over blaze. Now it's law in waiting, Dolores says, tapping the staple. All it needs is a room. The bell over the door jingles as we stand. The cicadas push the evening forward. Patricia touches Dad's shoulder as we pass. About time someone balanced the books, she says. Her voice doesn't have much sugar in it, but there's hope. Outside, the lot smells like hot asphalt and penny rain. Dad pockets the keychain, the soldered seam glinting once before it goes dark. He holds the door for us with his foot proposal tucked under his arm like a newspaper, and the neon hum follows us out like a note you can't stop humming once you've learned the tune. Sunlight catches on the RV's chrome like it finally remembers our names. The engine idles in the driveway with a deeper, happier hum than I've ever heard from it, a sound with air in it like a chest that can breathe again. Dad turns the keychain in his fingers. No solder line, no scar, just a round ring and a small brass compass charm that flashes once as if to wink. He holds it up to the light and smiles with the modest pride of a man who would rather pass a test than brag about it. Across the cul-de-sac, white tents bloom on the common grounds. A banner stretched across the clubhouse reads, Community Renewal Picnic. Kids draw hopscotch ladders on the asphalt with chalk that nobody erases. Someone's smoker breathes oak and pepper into the morning. The smell puddles low and patient. The HOA gate stands open, arms wide, a sentinel choosing hospitality over posture. No beep? Ready, I ask. Dad nods and pockets the keychain with the reverence you give a good pen before you sign something that matters. Let's go say hello to our homework, he says. We walk under the banner. A breeze flicks its corners like a page turning. Tables are arranged with potluck bravado foil trays, church cakes bowls with names sharpied on painter's tape. The new board sits at a folding table with a clear box of pens and a ring binder thick with signatures. Patricia, now board president, stands with a clipboard and a sun hat, the brim tilted like resolve. Alton, she says, handing Dad a pen that clicks like a small decision. Your line is here. On the table is the charter oversight proposal, now simply charter printed on pale blue, because Dolores can be half joking and still right. Along the bottom margin, 200 names march ink in different hands, some tentative, some confident, some big enough to need their own square. Dad signs with his banker's hand letters square and legible, the handwriting of a man who never wanted to write a flourish that might be mistaken for evasion. He adds the date, then turns and offers the pen to Patricia. She signs beneath him, looks up, and speaks into a battery-powered microphone that behaves itself. Thank you all for showing up, she says. Today, we put what we promised into practice. The charter is adopted. Mandatory votes for amendments, budgets you can read, conflicts disclosed, records on a clock. We'll keep the pool open, and we'll keep the books open. Murmurs roll like a soft front. Shoulders drop. The treasurer, new, not the one who whispered at the party, steps forward with a sheet of paper held high. Effective next quarter, he says, voice careful but carrying annual fees reduced by 20%. We can do this because we renegotiated maintenance contracts, canceled 2 vanity projects, and right-sized reserves in line with best practices. We'll publish the audit summary next week. For a second, the crowd doesn't know how to hold it. Then the sound becomes applause, not the nervous kind from earlier years, but a round, relieved one that warms the tent from the edges inward. A child starts clapping offbeat, and nobody corrects him. Dad's smile changes shape, less modest now, more like gratitude's cousin. Dolores appears like she always does from the exact angle a necessary person chooses. She carries iced tea in a paper cup wet with condensation and offers it to Dad. Hydrate, she says. Reform is desert work. He takes the tea. We used your pale blue, he says. I know, she replies. It's flatteringly democratic. Stay, I tell her. They're about to cut brisket. I'm staying to watch you leave, she says. I like proper endings. On a folding chair to the side, there's an empty seat with a name placard that someone forgot to remove, Miriam Huxley. It faces the table like a ghost invited to see how the furniture's been rearranged. Dad glances at it, then at his pocket. He draws out the keychain, weighing it in his hand. For a moment, the metal catches sunlight and throws it across the placard. He lifts the ring by a fraction as if saluting an absence. No theatrics, just acknowledgement of a chapter that taught its lesson the long way. Patricia reads off 3 items from a quarterly transparency sheet pie chart slices labeled in human words, not acronym, soup. People nod. A few take photos. A boy tugs his mother's sleeve and asks when the fishing derby is. She says, soon with confidence as if the word is something the neighborhood finally owns. Speech, someone calls to Dad, but he shakes his head. This isn't mine. He says to me, not into a mic. It's ours. There's a difference that matters. Say that into a mic, I say. He doesn't. He squeezes my shoulder instead, and that says the part not for the minutes. We don't linger. That's a lesson too. Victory shouldn't loiter. We cross back to the driveway where the RV waits with a patient posture some are already folded inside the cabinets. Sandra slides a bag into the galley and wipes her hands like she's dusting flour. I brought the cards, she says. Top drawer bug spray beside them. Essential governance, I say. Dad climbs into the driver's seat, the vinyl warm. I take the passenger seat just like I did when my feet couldn't reach the floor and the world was wider for it. He fits the key to the ignition, and the engine's idle deepens with the contented whir of a plan kept. Neighbors gather without being called a spontaneous send-off. Patricia waves the pale blue charter like a church bulletin. The new treasurer holds up a laminated page that says 20% in large, friendly numbers, as if you could frame a percentage and hang it in a living room. A kid on a scooter tries to race our mirror and loses on purpose to cheer. Dad cracks the window. A woman I don't know steps up. It was never about the RV, she says. But I'm glad it's also about the RV. Me too, Dad says. He gives the engine one light rev and children cheer like it's a parade float. Somewhere near the tents, tongs clink against aluminum pan, a domestic symbol. Dolores lifts her cup a small, unshowy toast. This time, Dad says, glancing at me with the kind of pride that never has to clear its throat, the trip's ours. We roll slowly toward the gate. The arm lifts, no beep, no scanner, chirp, no camera pivoting to catch us like suspects. Just the simple mechanics of something designed to open when you approach it. Beyond the entrance, the road makes a clean line toward the highway and then to the hills. The morning is young enough to be generous. As we pass the clubhouse, I look back. The banner flutters. The pale blue pages ripple. Someone chalks a new hopscotch square where there used to be a notice taped at stern eye level. The empty chair remains empty in the way empty can be healthy. The tents will come down. The brisket will be gone. The charter will be what stays. I turn forward. The RV gathers itself with a satisfied shift. The neighborhood shrinks in the mirror to a shape that finally is home. The compass charm swings once and settles, pointing toward nothing in particular and everything that matters. The gate behind us just stays open. The spring air smelled of brisket and chalk dust, and the gate behind us stayed open without a sound. In my palm, the restored keychain felt weighty, not for metal, but for meaning. Its compass charm catching sunlight as neighbors signed their names into permanence. What began as a petty toe ended as a ceremony of balance fees, lowered voices, counted records, kept honest. I learned that systems break when silence is routine, but they heal when accountability becomes habit. Justice isn't loud, it's steady.